Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video of my channel. This video is going to cover the power rankings of the 8 playoff teams that will compete in Valorant Masters Copenhagen. It's going to be based on objective numbers that I crunched. Not that objective, but I focused on finding each team's average round difference per map, average KDA, average KAST percentage per team, average first kill death difference per round, what percentage of kills were assisted, and I scored them and weighed them out of 100 based on what I believe was more reflective of how strong a team is. And I put that all together and got a score out of 100, ranked each team's 1 out of 8 to get this power ranking. I'll put a link below to the Excel file I use if you really want to go through all that bullshit, heavily studied statistics. In all seriousness though, please take these rankings as an entertainment. Do not take it too seriously, although you are free to do so if you want. Alright then, let's dive right in. In number 8 we have OpTic Gaming. I know this might be a surprise to many of you, I guess. OpTic Gaming are the former champs, but they end up at the bottom of the list because numbers don't lie, and they did struggle during the group stage. They barely got out of it, and some people say the competition was tough, but I don't really think it was that tough. To be honest, the APAC region is a lot harder. Guild was only the 3rd seed out of Europe, so I don't know. I am worried about OpTic Gaming, and it's going to depend a lot on how Ye turns up. He was one of the best players, if not the best player last tournament, and if that Ye shows up, then OpTic will do a lot better. But if that Ye doesn't show up, then I don't think they're just gonna go that far. Next we have Leviatan, a team I admittedly don't know very well. And oh, by the way, the 4 teams that were already seeded in the playoffs had some of their numbers scaled based on how their respective regional teams performed. For example, Guild Esports had better stats in general during the group stage, so FNATIC naturally got a buff. And likewise, Crew performed worse during the group stage compared to their regional playoffs, and so naturally Leviathan's stats suffered. And maybe that's why they ended up here. Maybe it's not fair, but even when you consider the context of everything, this team was really inconsistent during their playoff run, and I'm just not sure if they got hot in the right moment or actually made a jump. Because when you watch the grand finals, there's a lot of messy things, and it just feels like, you know, I feel really bad saying this, but it just feels like this region is not up to par with the other regions. In number 6 we have Guild Esports, who looked really strong during the group stage, but based on the numbers is actually not that strong. What's really interesting about this team is that they just love to play with each other. Like, they just hold hands like in every way possible and come up with one of these most unique and creative strategies that you will ever see, at least in terms of stacking a site. And they tend to do this a lot, especially during anti-eco rounds. And this is kind of made possible because I think they have a great read on what's going on during the game. And like you see here, they're 3 stacking mid. And honestly, one of the reasons why they can do this is because their retake game is pretty strong. And I think the philosophy of Guild Esports is they would rather retake a site altogether than to risk losing a member in an outnumbered fight. And so, like, look at here, there's no one on B on Guild Esports, and everyone's literally at A site. And this gamble works, and when something like this works, the enemy team's mental is just gonna blow out. Like, imagine being on the other side of this. No one does this, but Guild Esports makes this work. So this next team on the list was obviously the hardest one to really measure because of the situation they're in. I'm sure many of you know, but Zaigetsu couldn't get a visa, and they had a substitutional player play for the group stage. So, you know, they weren't the same team, and I think missing a player does a lot. It changes a lot of the dynamics of how things work. And so I ended up playing around with the numbers a lot for this team. I used the data from their EMEA playoff run, but I also kind of deducted some points given that they probably couldn't practice all together too well, because you know you do have to practice with Cider, right? And like there must be additional stress from all these things that are going on. So yeah, I scaled them down a little bit, but here they still are. FPX is, after all, a really strong team. If I didn't adjust them down, they would have been, I think, number 2. But that being said, I do think this spot it makes more sense. And the reason is because, like, FPX, they do some weird things sometimes, as in, they just walk out dry and die. Like, they're so confident in their, I guess, dueling abilities that, you know, you just kind of see them randomly walk out or like hold weird angles or fight individually and not as a team. And I think these kind of things, you know, really hinder them from being a top team. But it also means that if they get that together, like if they actually start to work together, FPX can be one of the strongest teams in this tournament. The 4th best team based on my metric is XSET, and it really didn't help that OpTic struggled a lot more than they probably should have. And as a result, XSET's stats suffered a little bit because OpTic did worse than they did in their NA playoff run. Actually, never mind. They did a little bit better, so they didn't get too much of a boost compared to FNATIC or FPX, who got a big boost because Guild Esports overperformed by a lot. And I do think that at their best, XSET is as good as any team in the world. Like, they can definitely take this tournament and take the trophy home. But what I do worry about is their inexperience in the international stage. And, you know, I'm kind of worried that they might replicate what the Guard did last time around when, you know, they disappointed a lot of people by not performing to expectations, basically. So I wouldn't be surprised if XSET becomes the Guard of this tournament, especially considering how the competition seems to have risen. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they win, because they're a really good team when they're playing well. So we'll see how things go. Next we have DRX, who has traditionally been really strong during the group stage of international tournaments, and then they always fall short of expectations during playoffs, like repeatedly. I do think that this time around it will be different. If you hear like their interviews, they do seem to know what's been the problem like in the past. And I think in previous tournaments, they kind of did the same thing over and over again. Like even the spectators and the casters could see what's coming, and that's why they lost to Zeta. Right? In the group stage of last Masters tournament, they crushed Zeta. Like, Zeta looked terrible against DRX. And then Zeta came around to beat DRX because DRX was doing the same thing, and Zeta was just waiting for it. But this time around, it seems that DRX knows that. They've been actively saying they're gonna change things, around, try to adapt team by team, try to be creative. And so we'll see what they can do, because, you know, they have really strong players. and they always make some kind of highlight reel. They come out with a lot of creative strategies, and they just need to not do that over and over again. So this next team has to be the most exciting team in the tournament, and it was the most exciting team last tournament as well, right? Everyone was excited to see Yoru, and Forsaken did pull out the Yoru, even if, you know, it wasn't as great as it was during the APAC regionals. But that's the kind of thing that differentiates Forsaken, right? I would have to say he's the best duelist in the world right now. Like a duelist main. I do think there's a different best player in the world, but if we're talking about a duelist main specifically, definitely Forsaken. Although he does play Chamber, but like, so if we say he's not a duelist main, then there's Jing on his team, who would be the best duelist in the world if we take out Forsaken, right? Like these two entry players, these two fraggers just make Paper Rex incredibly strong. And the thing about FPS is that when you have the best fragger and the second best fragger on the map, like they can almost 2v5, right? You play solo queue, and I mean, like professional matches aren't solo queues, but like you get the idea. The team with the best and the second best fragger usually and most likely will win, and sometimes will just crush you, which is what Paper Rex kind of did to the region, because the rest of the team aren't jokes. Like, they're amazing as well. And the thing about Forsaken is his decision making is incredible. Because like he's not the type of player that just flicks on you and headshots you. Like, he sees something and can assess what's going on and then decide what he needs to do in an instance. And that's why he gets like that knife kill we saw earlier. A lot of clutches. And remember how we all kind of oozed at Surf and Xerxia during the group stage, especially against FPX. But they were manhandled by Paper Rex during APAC finals. Right? Like Paper Rex is on another level, on a strong region. It's really scary to see what they're gonna do, and you know the numbers say they're number 2, but I don't know. My gut tells me they might be the best team on the tournament. Although I think that could be DRX as well. But then again, this next team is not a joke, so speaking of that next team, it is FNATIC. I don't think many of you will be surprised. This player you're seeing right now turns some heads for sure. I think a lot of people consider him as the best player in the world right now, and I agree. This kid is something else. Like, if he just played fraggers like Forsaken, like Duelist and Chamber, I wouldn't be as high on him. But he plays things like Viper, Killjoy, although his Raze is definitely the scariest out of all of those. But then the thing is, he's a great team player, and what that means is that he has a great understanding of the game in almost every facet, and he's not even legal to drink yet. Oh man, like, this guy is going to have a heck of a career. And remember what I said earlier about the top fraggers when I was talking about Paper Rex? Well, FNATIC is arguably going to have the best player on every game they play. And Durka is no joke. So they're arguably going to have the 2 best players in a given game. How can you not have them number 1? And that wraps it up for my power rankings. In all honesty though, like, yes, I crunched the numbers, but I don't really buy it myself. It kind of, I think those stats show the past, and a lot of it is kind of a little bit rigged and scaled So in my personal opinion, I think that any team can win this tournament except for Leviatan. I'm sorry, but like, just don't trust that team. Yeah, they were inconsistent in their own region, so I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they show up in a big way. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching my video, and if you liked it, please like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And again, thank you.